In today's interconnected global economy, there's a critical business function that manages the entire journey of a product, from raw material all the way to the final consumer. We call this supply chain management, or SCM. And for a dynamic, complex market like India, understanding its core components is absolutely fundamental to success. So in this module, we're going to systematically examine each of these essential parts. Our discussion today will cover 5 key areas. We'll start with a quick introduction, then we'll dive into how products are sourced and made. After that, we'll look at how those finished products get moved around and explore the key strategic functions behind it all. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the benefits of getting SCM right. To make these concepts tangible and easy to grasp, we're going to use a single example throughout our discussion. Let's ask ourselves this question. How does a brand new smartphone actually get from a collection of raw components to being in your pocket right here in India? This case study will be our guide. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. The first phase of any supply chain is all about sourcing and making the product. Think of this as the foundation. It's where the physical item is actually created, from getting the basic materials to assembling the final finished good. Everything else is built on top of this. The very first step here is what we call procurement. Now, the formal definition is that it's the process of acquiring the raw materials and components needed for production. You can think of it as the strategic purchasing part of the operation. The whole goal is to get the right materials at the best possible price from the most reliable suppliers. So, let's apply this to our smartphone example. A manufacturer in India wouldn't make every single part themselves. They would procure specialized components from global suppliers, things like high-resolution screens or powerful processors. So the key activities in procurement are selecting those suppliers, negotiating prices, and, crucially, making sure those components are delivered right on time. Once we've procured all the necessary parts, we move on to the next stage, production. This is the transformation process. It's where all those raw materials and components we just bought are converted into a finished product. This is where the real tangible value is added through assembly and manufacturing. Back to our smartphone. The actual assembly would likely happen in one of India's major manufacturing hubs, places like Chennai or Noida. And during this production phase, the focus is squarely on 3 things: maintaining very high quality standards, sticking to the manufacturing schedule, and doing it all as cost-effectively as possible. All right, so the product is now fully assembled. What's next? The supply chain now enters its next major phase, which is all about the physical movement of those finished goods from the factory floor all the way to the end customer. And this process is known as distribution. It's about managing that whole network that moves products from where they're made to where they're sold. This can mean getting them to warehouses, to retail stores, or even directly to you, the customer, through e-commerce channels. For a smartphone company trying to sell across India, this means using a network of strategically placed distribution centers. The goal here is simple but challenging: to ensure efficient, widespread, nationwide delivery so that the product is available no matter where the customer is. Now, a closely related and you could say more detailed component is logistics. You see, while distribution is about the overall strategy of the network, logistics gets into the nitty-gritty operational details. We're talking about the specific functions of transportation, warehousing, and managing inventory. And in a country like India, effective logistics is incredibly critical. I mean, think about the country's huge geographical area and its diverse terrain. Companies absolutely must use a mix of transportation modes, road, rail, air, and even sea, to move goods efficiently. The strategic goals here are to cut down on transit times and to perfect inventory levels, so you avoid running out of stock but also don't have too much sitting in a warehouse. So, we've covered the physical flow of goods, making them and moving them. Now, let's shift our focus to the strategic functions. You can think of this as the intelligence layer, or the brains of the entire supply chain operation. This is what's responsible for planning and optimizing the whole process. The first major strategic function is demand planning. This is all about forecasting, predicting future customer demand. Why? To make sure that the right amount of product is produced and is available at exactly the right time. The main goal is to perfectly align what you supply with what you expect the demand to be. In the Indian smartphone market, demand planning is absolutely essential. Planners have to consider things like big seasonal spikes in demand during festivals like Diwali or the hype around a new product launch. To do this, they use tools like historical sales data and market research to predict, for example, exactly how many units of a new phone will be needed in different parts of the country. Another key strategic function is something called Supplier Relationship Management, or SRM. This is all about building and maintaining strong collaborative partnerships with your suppliers. The idea is to move beyond just simple transactional buying and selling and towards creating long-term strategic alliances. Now, within India's complex industrial and ecosystem, good SRM is vital. When you have strong relationships with your suppliers, you build trust. And that trust ensures you get consistent quality and a reliable supply of materials. This kind of long-term cooperation makes the entire supply chain much more efficient and resilient, which is crucial for our smartphone company. Okay, we've looked at each of the core components of supply chain management individually. Now, let's take a step back and consolidate all this information to really see how these different parts are all interconnected. This table gives us a great summary of the entire flow. See how it starts with procurement, sourcing those smartphone components? That's followed by production in a place like Chennai. Then distribution gets the finished product out through a pan-India warehouse network, with logistics managing the actual transport. And remember, guiding all of this physical movement are the brains, demand planning and supplier relationship management. Each one is a critical link in the chain. So we've reviewed all the core components. But this brings us to a really important question. What's the payoff? Why does all this matter? Let's examine the significant advantages that an organization gains from having a truly well-managed supply chain. Well, the benefits are substantial. First, effective SCM leads to cost reduction by cutting down on waste. It also improves operational efficiency, making everything run faster and smoother. This, in turn, directly leads to higher customer satisfaction because of reliable, on-time delivery. And when you put all of those together, they give a company a significant competitive edge, helping it to achieve market leadership. So, in conclusion, it's so important to understand that supply chain management is not just about logistics or moving boxes. It's a comprehensive, deeply integrated business function. By mastering all of these core components we've discussed, organizations can dramatically improve their performance and really sharpen their competitiveness, not just in India, but in global markets as well. And that leaves us with a final point to consider. As we look at India's impressive economic growth, which of these SCM components do you think will be the most critical to master for future success? The answer to that question has massive implications for business strategy in the years to come. Thank you.